As 2003 came to a close, the landscape of the WWE had changed dramatically and only continued in that direction. While cornerstones of the company, Triple H and The Undertaker, were still around, their identities were undergoing major transformations while newer stars continued to get pushed. Survivor Series 2003 was a perfect example of what the WWE was about in the year of 2003. The perfect show to display how things were. Raw and SmackDown were set with their identities, but everything was changing rapidly. With that said, Survivor Series 2003 was held in the American Airlines Arena on November 16, 2003. 13,487 were in attendance to witness the Buried Alive match, and 450,000 people purchased the show, which was an improvement over 2002's 340,000. The theme song for the event was Build a Bridge by Limp Bizkit, and this ended up being the final song WWE used from the band for their pay-per-views, so it was actually the end of an era. The build for the show was wonderful and sadly better than WrestleMania 19's build for the most part. It might seem like a hot take, but that's how I see it, because similar to WrestleMania, the show felt like it had the highest stakes for everyone involved. John Cena's moment to shine, Shawn Michaels to save Austin's career, McMahon to save himself from being buried alive, Lita trying to prove she has what it takes to go after the women's title after nearly 3 years without a title run, and of course an injured Bill Goldberg finding himself not only at a disadvantage, but going up against the most intelligent wrestler on Raw, Triple H. Alright, with that said, let's get into it. The first match on the show was the Survivor Series elimination match. Team Angle, Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Bradshaw, Hardcore Holly, and John Cena faced Team Lesnar, Brock Lesnar, Big Show, Nathan Jones, Matt Morgan, and A-Train. This was originally in storyline supposed to involve Farouk. He got attacked, so John Cena ended up being the replacement. Cena was a face for the first time in his rapper character era. It was bound to happen because of the crowd reception. Cena throughout this time period was mostly hostile to everybody, so he felt like a renegade. He made fun of the heels and said he didn't need a stable, but was wondering if he could trade his partners for one night with Sable. This was the biggest representation of John Cena on a Big Four pay-per-view up to this point, and that would only continue. Chris Benoit was no doubt about it the very best in-ring performer around the end of 2003. Benoit had a silent momentum building around him in his quest for the world title. He was basically an uncrowned champion. Hardcore Holly had a mini push that looked so out of its depth, this guy was treated like a main eventer for 2 months. Kurt Angle was starting to feel the effects of returning early, and that would continue to show. Nathan Jones was on his way out at this point, and Matt Morgan was too damn green. Brock Lesnar was almost done with the WWE feeling burnt out. Hardcore Holly quickly went after Lesnar and it was on. He was too intense and got himself disqualified, leaving his team at a disadvantage. Back in the ring, A-Train was dominating Bradshaw off the ropes. He walks into the clothesline from Hill, and you'd think it was 2004 because he eliminated A-Train. Big Show comes in and drops him with the choke slam, and it was 3-on-4. Cena had a tough task on his hand with this one. He was trying to outsmart Lesnar, but all it took was his intensity for the heels to take control. At this point, the only thing that could stop them was the wellness policy. They were beating on him like he was a jobber, and a slight opening leads to the throwback, and he quickly got to Chris Benoit for the tag. Benoit upped the intensity and overwhelmed Brock with his pure wrestling, so he used his power to tag out. Big Show was in, and it was mostly easy work for him. The chokeslam got countered into the crossface, and Brock quickly broke it up. Abdominal stretch, and just when he's getting out of the hold, Big Show drops him with a leg drop. This was known as the Final Cut. The match got chaotic at this point, and it all changed when Kurt Angle came in. Angle came in with the Germans to build momentum, and it felt like nobody could stop him. The heels were making mistakes, and Angle took advantage to eliminate Nathan Jones. Even made Nathan Jones tap out, but at a moment's notice, Brock dropped him with the F5. It was now 2-on-2, and Chris Benoit became more methodical. He locked in the crossface when while Lesnar did struggle, he rolled him up and used the ropes to his advantage. The third attempt, though, didn't work well, and Lesnar tapped out. The fans were chanting, "You tapped out," and back in the ring, Big Show was doing everything he could to keep his team in it, but it was looking unlikely. Yeah, CC was always going to be in his future with that one. Benoit tagged in Cena and took the chokeslam with Big Show being unaware of Cena behind him. He used the chain and hit a huge FU 1, 2, 3. This match passed by quick. It was a Survivor Series sprint with the match centered around the Rabid Wolverine and a Doctor of Thugonomics. It was more about Benoit having the champion's number, a story which seemed like it would build towards WrestleMania 20, but we all know what happened. As to the action, solid. We don't see too much of the green guys. John Cena was another notable part of this match. They showed you straight up that he's the future by having him pin the Big Show the way he did. And this was his face turn being officially cemented at Survivor Series. Vince tried to relate to his son Shane, saying they're facing the two brothers, but he didn't want to hear any of it. Stone Cold, meanwhile, was laughing at Vince's impending demise. The next match was for the WWE Women's Championship. Molly Holly defended the gold against Lita. Lita's been back for only 2 months. Her entire run has built up to this very moment. Molly was in her prime. 03 was her year like Tim Duncan. They based the division around her for the most part, and it's understandable why. She was a strong heel, plus Jazz was injured at the time, so she basically took advantage of it. Molly was wearing a Crash Holly tribute wristband. He had just passed away a couple of weeks earlier, and unfortunately WWE didn't even acknowledge his death because apparently there was too much heat on them from the other deaths that had occurred in the last couple of months. See how things are? Early on, Lita had the advantage in the match. Suplex kip up from the challenger, and off the ropes, Molly tossed her over. She tried to take advantage of her with a pin, but it was unsuccessful. Swinging neck breaker, and the champion went to work. This is the core of her offense. It's always about beating the life out of her opponent and doing it with an angry look on her face. That Dragon Sleeper did do a number on Lita, enough to allow her to hit a great handspring. She was kicking her ass. Lita finally fought back and rolled over to hit a crossbody for a 2 count. She was starting to build momentum, and the champion was starting to make mistakes. Lita got ahead of herself and took a sidewalk slam. She rebounded with a powerbomb for a 2. Side rush and leg sweep sweep and she was up to the turnbuckle. She was up to the top for the lead assault. That didn't work and Molly hit the go around. Beautiful move. 1, 2, no. She was starting to lose it. Lita almost stole the match from her, but Molly managed to rob her of a proper match with the exposed turnbuckle. 1, 2, 3. Solid match. I wasn't expecting much because Lita didn't have many notable matches from this part of her career. She wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire with her in-ring performances, but it was decent. The only problem I have is how they don't really have a strong chance to actually put on something more. From the stories we've heard, there were certain things the woman couldn't do in their matches, so even if they had 10 minutes, they were never going to make the most out of it. This was as good as it was going to be for Molly in WWE. For Lita, her career took a wild turn after this one with the Chris Jericho, Christian, and eventually the Kane storyline. The next match was an ambulance match. Kane faced Shane McMahon. Kane was still on the monstrous push here, which should have been better, but these two did work hard in their matches, so there's that. I liked their Unforgiven match and actually thought it was the best match on the show. They had a weird segment on the Raw before Survivor Series in a restaurant, and they thought they were Al Pacino and De Niro. I did like it though. They kept their business for the actual show. Shane quickly dived onto Kane with a lot of intensity. Kane managed to match it though with all the fury in the world and threw him into the steps. Shane responded with a chair and it was already intense. He used a TV monitor to his advantage and went up top for coast to coast. It worked out very well for him. They made their way to the back where Shane lured Kane to an ambush. Forget the ambulance, he was trying to send him to the grave with this one. He thought it was enough for the win, but this was 2003 Kane. He got all pissed, shouting it's the end of him and the strategy, and Kane made his way to the arena with Shane being dragged along for the journey. He constantly threw him to the ambulance. Shane used the doors and was trying to take him out from under with shots to the legs, tornado DDT from Shane, and he was just doing anything at this point to keep him down. He brought out the trash can and smashed it into his head. He hit one of his strangest coast to coast, and the reason why I say strange is because this man had to do a crazy ass leap from the ambulance as opposed to the ropes and had to make sure he landed directly onto that platform. It was complicated. Kane was battered, but he wasn't out of it. He had enough of having Shane look stronger than him and destroyed him with the ambulance. He hit the tombstone on the concrete floor and sent him to Greenwich. This was the last Shane was seen in a WWE arena for 2 years. Kane basically flipped the switch and remembered who he was. Decent match. I didn't have much high hopes for it. I always thought it went differently, but my memory lied to me. It was better than I remember, but it was always going to be hard to have a great ambulance match. These two had so much intensity in their story that it wouldn't have been out of the realm to see them inside Hell in a Cell. Maybe they should have done it here. I know Shane would have been up for it. As for the spots, good stuff. Shane destroyed himself again, but the ambulance one impressed me because it was on concrete floor and obviously he's a pro, but the positioning was so different when compared to the ring and announce table ones. Kane had so much momentum and almost needed to end with the title because they decided to put him in the championship picture. When that happens, it has to end one way, but it is what it is. Brock Lesnar, showing bitterness over his loss, claimed he didn't lose, and Bill Goldberg introduced himself. So sad how this match never ended up happening. It could have been a great one for WrestleMania 20. With that said, the fans were ready to see this match. If only they gave a damn, and if only WWE understood their dynamics, especially from Goldberg's side. The coach gave an update on his neck and interviewed Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. The coach poked fun at NBA's referees, and after Cuban said he wanted to see Austin kick Bischoff's ass, the Raw GM came out and challenged him to say what he wanted to his face. Bischoff told him that it's his building tonight, not Cuban's, and he shoved him. He got embarrassed and Randy Orton came out and hit the RKO. He sold it like he got shot, and that was the segment. It was filler to calm things down before the next match and also give Randy Orton technically another legend to kill. Financially he is a legend, but you get what I mean. The next match was for the WWE Tag Team Championships. The Basham brothers defended the titles against Los Guerreros. I still can't believe this Basham's gimmick is real. Deviant by night, wrestlers by day. Again, early 2000s WWE was on something very strange. They had these guys getting smacked in the ass in the dark or something. It's just bizarre stuff, bro. Los Guerreros quickly went on the attack. They had problems at this point that would continue to grow over the next few weeks. Eddie had too much fire in him after the champions claimed his sister-in-law had a car accident. He hit 3 amigos, but Doug broke the fall. Eddie was going all out with the rules in place because when they weren't, it was back to the heels. Shaniqua dropped him with a clothesline and a body slam. The isolation began, and Doug and Danny made sure to keep Eddie away from Chavo. Slingshot suplex for a near fall. Chavo comes in for the tag, and you can clearly see they didn't have a lot of time. Guerrero was unstoppable while Shaniqua was shouting for them to get back on track. The thing that allowed for the Bashams to have the edge was their connection. They were in tune and had greater chemistry than Los Guerreros, who were on the outs. Hurricanrana from Eddie, both teams were going back and forth and even hit each other with a clothesline. Double clothesline, and it's time for the final act. The brothers switched with the help of Shaniqua, and Eddie hit a frog splash on her. They didn't realize what's up and they were too busy smacking her. Swinging DDT knocks down Eddie, and Danny took advantage of Chavo checking on Eddie with a roll-up to retain the titles. Basic match, it was more about giving Eddie Guerrero his conclusion to the Los Guerreros run. The story was that they weren't on the same page and it would continue to develop over the next few weeks. Now, at the time, Eddie was starting to get very, very over and very popular with the fans, and it was a type of popularity where it's like, why not try to give him the belt? That's how popular Eddie was and the opportunity he brought, because Eddie Guerrero was a unique talent. He was a mega draw for the Latino community, so they wanted to try that out. The next match was a Survivor Series elimination match. Team Austin, the Dudley Boys, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, and Shawn Michaels faced Team Bischoff, Scott Steiner, Mark Henry, Randy Orton, Christian, and Chris Jericho. A story that had been brewing since Austin was fired as an in-ring performer. Stone Cold's firing only provided him the opportunity to become the co-GM with Bischoff. There was plenty of tension between them, and since Austin was assaulting others, he was reprimanded and tried to use a loophole of having someone else touch him first. It worked sometimes, but for the most part, everyone could see through and provoked him in all kinds of ways, calling him a coward, making fun of him in his face, and it got to the point where Eric Bischoff challenged him to a Survivor Series elimination match. If Austin wins, he does whatever he wants, but if he loses, Bischoff is the only GM on Raw. Stone Cold was never known to trust anybody until now, a scenario that required him to trust 5 men to save his job and give him what he wants. With that said, Christian and Devon started things off. Captain Charisma was more about getting respect. RVD comes in and Van Dam offered something different to this match and nearly eliminated Christian. Y2J comes in, he couldn't really answer this assault and had to try and match that elusive style RVD did. Steiner's in, same story as Christian, he was dazed after this kick and had to use more of the power game to get back in it. He hit a belly to belly from the top and Booker T came in. He overwhelmed Steiner, hit a scissors kick, a spine buster, and the match got chaotic. Stacy Keibler distracted Steiner, who she managed against her will, which is the test storyline by the way, and the Dudleys took advantage, leading to the bookend, and Scott Steiner was eliminated. So they did a nice callback with Stacy being alongside the Dudleys for a moment here, and Steiner was out. Mark Henry was too much for Booker T to handle, and he was out. While RVD was a dominating one on Austin's side, Henry was for Bischoff's team. It got to the point where the Dudleys had to team up, and Van Dam had to hit the 5-star to eliminate him. Randy Orton entered the match for the first time and had plenty of intensity. Orton was very aggressive, and Van Dam responded with a missile kick and the Rolling Thunder. It wasn't looking good for the heels, but Jericho made the save, leading to the RKO. Now it was 3-on-3. It wasn't for too long though, because they eliminated Devon Dudley. Shawn Michaels finally entered the match and he got worn out quickly, allowing for Bubba to come in. He was doing well until Jericho hit him with a low blow, leaving Shawn Michaels on Austin's team. HBK hit the comeback sequence and was knocking down all the heels. Jericho's slimy tactics were the difference maker in this entire match. He always made sure to save his team and ensure the opponent would be eliminated. Then Christian catapulted him into the post and this busted him open, and HBK was bleeding like crazy. There was no tag for Michaels to make. The man was fighting with all his will. Then from out of nowhere he hit the sweet chin music on Christian. 1, 2, 3. 2-on-1 now. The faith was there. Jericho was a huge rival of Michaels and had him beat in his last outing, so it didn't bode well for the Heartbreak Kid, not to mention it being Randy Orton who was the difference maker in that last match back in July. Randy Orton was feeling the heat to the point where he tagged out. HBK was starting to make Jerry Lawler believe, but just like that, Jericho hit the Bulldog. He failed to hit the Lion Stall, and at this point it was anybody's match when it came down to it. He failed to hit the sweet chin music, but rolled up Jericho. 1, 2, 3. The crowd was going insane, but Jericho shut them down with a chair. He was frustrated over the situation, and back in the ring, HBK kicked out. Both men were worn out. Orton tried to go for the crossbody, but landed on the ref. HBK was getting ready to tune up the band, and Bischoff knew that his days were numbered, so he kicked him. Austin comes in, he drops Orton with the RKO. What the hell? Why did I write this? With the stunner, and goes after Bischoff. Batista takes advantage, and everyone was let down before he even hit the power bomb because they knew how it was going to end. Batista drops him with the Batista bomb. Orton crawled for the cover. 1, 2, 3. This match had a very high level of stakes attached to it, and even though the stakes were big, it was always down to the wrestlers themselves to sell it like it was everything. Shawn Michaels did just that. He had some certain attributes as a face that supersede his heel attributes, and this was the greatest example of why HBK is better as a face. If you want to make the argument that Shawn Michaels is better as a face, you most likely would choose this match as an example. A story of high stakes and for Shawn Michaels, high pressure. He had nothing to lose, but this was everything for Stone Cold Steve Austin. The story was amazing and it was positioned perfectly, with Bischoff thinking there was no way that they were blowing a 3-1 lead. What were they, WCW in 1998? But Shawn Michaels, with just a miracle in mind, was almost about to change everything. This is a great example of why we need to see Heartbreak every once in a while. It would have been nice if he won, but the sad moment here was much bigger and much more impactful. The talent involved played their roles to perfection and did their jobs. The heels got booed and the faces were cheered. With HBK though, there was an extra magic on this night. It was one of his greatest performances. This is the kind of heartbreak you feel in sports. I've felt it many times just in the past year, that winner moment is taken away from you. This is my favorite Survivor Series match. It isn't much for the first half, but they really turned it up in the second half. Austin came out and said that if he had to end his career, he's glad he did it in Dallas, Texas. The same place he started his career. The coach came out and tried provoking him, but forgot that Austin was free, meaning he was about to take a beating, and he did. Austin was gone for about a month though. The next match was a Buried Alive match. The Undertaker faced Mr. McMahon. All The Undertaker wanted was to be the WWE Champion. McMahon wanted to ensure that it didn't happen. When The Undertaker beat Brock Lesnar in the Big Show, McMahon also gave him the choice of any match he wanted, as long as it wasn't for the title. He chose a Buried Alive match with the Boss being his opponent. Now, heading into this one, McMahon was under the belief that the higher power would help him win this one. Like, this man could smell the gates of heaven. The moment The Undertaker struck him, everything changed. He hit him with a reality check and already he was busted open. He was battered and struggling to walk. It was a plotting battle, but then you hear what the commentary are saying and you're like, oh, no wonder he's beating him up like he is. Undertaker brought in the shovel and dropped him with it, and at this point it was a foregone conclusion. He destroyed his foot and carried him to the grave. McMahon finally did something with a low blow and used that shovel to send him into the grave. He thought he had it, but that was just a short moment. As the Undertaker is going to the loader, an explosion happens and Kane came out. He took out his brother. The commentary was confused because he was on Raw, and McMahon used that loader to pour all the dirt into the grave. This match was plotting. It dragged on and on, but we all know what it was for. Kane coming in and burying his brother was such a great moment, something that stands out from this era, especially because of what followed. He was clearly the higher power that Vince was constantly talking about, and it's an unforgettable moment because this marked the end of the American Badass arc or American Badass character run for The Undertaker. He'd been this character for about 4 years, and if it was up to him, he would be this character for the rest of his career. But at the end of the day, there was always more money in the dead man. He hadn't been the dead man in about 5 years since he was the Ministry Undertaker. Before that, regular Undertaker, he hadn't been regular Undertaker in about 6 years. So there was clearly money in Undertaker being the dead man once again, and they knew that. He obviously wasn't too happy about it, but it was a great decision because at the end of the day, for as good as he was as the American Badass, he was always going to be much better as the dead man because that's his character. And the main event, Bill Goldberg defends the World Heavyweight Championship against Triple H. The game found himself in a scenario he wasn't really used to, a situation where he was without the world title, and he quickly acted out. So heading into this one, Goldberg was at a huge disadvantage with his leg, not to mention Evolution playing a factor in this match. Goldberg quickly went at it, he dropped the game with a spear, and Flair tried to get involved, and at this point the match had yet to begin. There it is, the bell rings. The champion overpowered Triple H, and on the outside he sent him into the steps, and Triple H just couldn't figure out the champion. Back in the ring, he walked into the power slam, and the commentary made mention of Triple H celebrating before the match even happened. His opening came when Goldberg couldn't fully lift the game, so he started targeting his leg. This worked out very well for Triple H. Even Ric Flair got involved. The game was methodical in his approach, and why wouldn't he be? It was basically a free win. To make matters worse, Ric Flair on the outside was adding insult to injury. Goldberg fought his way out of this predicament, and it was time for the final act. Triple H had a chop block and tried the figure four, but got pushed into the ref. He brought in the brass knuckles, but the ref took long in counting the fall, leading to Goldberg kicking out, so Triple H dropped him with an elbow. They did nothing with this. Flair went up top thinking he had a chance of hitting something, which he obviously didn't, because Ric Flair going up means there's a 9% chance of him actually hitting something, or a 5% chance. Goldberg had the sledgehammer in hand, used it on Flair, Batista, and Orton. He tried going for a spear on Triple H, but it looked awkward. The champion, covering the pedigree, had the sledgehammer in hand, but decided it wasn't the time, and hit the spear and the jackhammer. 1, 2, 3. Basic match. They masked a lot of Goldberg's shortcomings as always, as did in the main event matches here. There were some boring moments to be honest, but it wasn't like a terrible one. Then again, your definition of a terrible match compared to mine might be slightly different, but basically it was at times boring, so that tells you all you need to know. Goldberg winning here does make sense, but I do wish he destroyed Triple H. I kind of wish they did it here just to establish Goldberg more, because he was going to lose the title anyways. It's just, I think it would have been cool to see him destroy Triple H in the WCW. Like, that would have been awesome. But yeah, other than that, this match was just there. And again, my bad match might not be your bad match. Like, I don't think it was bad, but it was boring. The Goldberg title reign was just there. I feel like they just did it because they wanted to make good on their money, and that was it. Because other than that, there wasn't much with him because his contract was set to expire. So yeah. Alright, that's Survivor Series 2003. This was actually a good event. This event was one of my favorite Survivor Series events. It's always 2002, 2003, and 2007. Those three are my favorites, with all three being my absolute favorite, although it could change from time to time. It had a lot of symbolism to it. It felt like the end of an era and like the official, I want to say the beginning, but it felt like the Ruthless Aggression era was like here and established at this point. There's a lot of stuff with this event that very few events in general have. You know, it had a lot of high stakes to it. I didn't really have a problem with this event. Yeah, the main event was a bit dry, it was a bit boring, but there was a lot of great moments in this event, and they make it one of my personal favorites, so yeah. Match of the night is obviously the Survivor Series elimination match. That was one of the best Survivor Series elimination matches and my personal favorite. Shawn Michaels almost came back. He almost made the comeback. It was ridiculous stuff, and it's a must-watch if you haven't watched it before, because you will not be disappointed. Good event. It had a lot of moments to it. Good stuff here, so yeah. Alright, what'd you guys think of Survivor Series 2003? Please comment down below. That's it for this video. Make sure you hit the F you on the like button, or perhaps the spear on the subscribe button. Peace, I'm out.